I'm going to be using a few different kinds of sponges. Here's a sea sponge, and I've got some of these circle sponges. I'll be using various flat brushes, round and liner brushes. Okay, so I have some hooker green and some phthalo blue on my palette. I'm going to start off with this sea sponge, and I have it slightly dampened. I'm going to start with my green. I'm going to go into that, get lots on my sponge. And I'm just going to start by dabbing it everywhere. Do your edges if you like. It makes it nice when it's finished. I won't do it right now. I want to create a really dark background for my candle with Christmas colors. I'm just going to keep going. I don't want it gobby, so where it is gobby, I'm going to go back over it when I get some of the paint off. I want this nice and smooth. And I'm going to cover the whole thing. I'm going to put a tablecloth down here, so I'm just going to do this just so that the colors down as far as we need it, because I don't quite know yet. Okay, so now I'm just going to go pick up all the gobs, distribute them around. Cover up these white areas. I'm going to pick up a little of that blue, little phthalo blue in there. And I'm not going to cover the whole thing, I'm just going to put some here and there. This is just a background. And now I'm just going to dab it in. Maybe a little more. Take a little blue and go over some of those white spots. So we eventually want all of them covered. And I'm going to dab this. Dab your sponge on a paper towel now and take off those spots. Or the gobs, I mean. We're going to paint over this, so we don't want it all bumpy. So now I have some dark crimson. I'm going to go take my sponge into that. And I'm just going to add some of that here and there. Don't want a lot of red because we're going to have quite a bit in the foreground. take some right off the edges. Okay, so now I'm going to wipe that off with paper towel again. I have a paper towel down here. And I'm going to dab that flat. And at this time I want to make sure all the white spots are covered up. Just give them an extra little dab on them. I'm going to use this craft brush. You can use pretty much any brush for this that you're comfortable with. Load it with the dark red, and I'm just going to sketch in my tablecloth. So I think I'll have it right about here. I'm just going to go straight back and forth with it. Make sure it comes right to your edges and paint it right around if you don't want to frame your picture. And you can bring that right off. And then later we'll paint the bottom. And I have a little bright red. And I'm just going to put a little of that on my brush that I used for my tablecloth. And I just want to highlight the center area where the candle's going to be shining. I guess this isn't a good time to do it. There we go. Okay, I have a small sea sponge with a small pattern. It's got some blue on it, but it's clean. It's just from using it before. And I have orange, white, and yellow on my palette. So I'm going to take my sea sponge and I'm going to go into mostly yellow. Dab most of it off, tiny bit of orange. And I'm going to make a circular glow for the center of my candle. So I'm just going to do one candle on this. If I was going to do more, then I would make more glows. Start in the center where my glow is going to be, where my flame will be, and work out. And you want it to fade as you go out, so we're getting less paint on our sponge. Make sure it's as round as you can get it. Now I'm not going to go back into the center because I'll have a little bit of green on here maybe now, depending on how dry your canvas is. And I'm just going to keep going out. Now when I get out about this far, I'm just going to put a few little flickers back here where the light might be hitting out a bit. Not too many. I'm going to go into the yellow again. A little bit of orange. Start right in the middle again, where you want want your brightest area to be, and then work out. Go a little bit lighter as you get, tap lighter as you get out, and let that fade right out. And you can keep doing that until you get it as bright as you want it. Acrylic paint always dries a little bit darker, so make things a little bit lighter than you may even want them. And again, I'm just gonna, little few spots where the candle's hitting things. Now with my sponge, I'm just gonna add, right here I'm gonna have my centerpiece. So I'm just going to bring a little bit of light out where it's hitting the table. And you can keep these going straight across. And I'm bringing them out. My red's coming off there, so that's okay. I'm just going to go into some yellow. And just smooth it as much as you want. Okay, so for the flame, I still have the orange, yellow, and white on my palette. Now the flame goes right in the center of the glow, and I'm going to start with a little bit of orange on each side of my brush. Then I'm going to load it really well into the yellow on the end. Oops, let's see, sorry. So I went dragged through the orange, lots of yellow. And the flame's going to take a few different steps to make. So I want my flame to go up this way. The brightest part will be in the middle. Candle will be here. So I'm going to touch it a little bit lower than the center. Push really hard and drag it up. I'm just going to go over that right there. It's going to be a nice big flame. Now I have another flat brush, a little bit smaller. This time I'm going to go into the yellow and the white to make a really light yellow. And I'm just kind of loading up that end, kind of flat, well loaded. And I'm going to touch very lightly this time so the paint will come off without. And drag it right up. And you can add a little bit more on there. Fill it in the best you can. We'll come back and add a little more when it's drier. You really want that to come up to that little point. And we're going to add some blue on the bottom. Okay, so I have a small flat brush and some bright red on my palette, and I'm going to shape my candle. So I'll load up my brush. First of all, I'm going to think, well, there's going to be a wick, so I'm going to go just below my flame for the back of the candle. And you make an oval, or I would say more like a cigar shape, right where you want your candle to be. And you decide on the width. Okay, then I'm going to bring my candle down to where Right about there. It's going to be sitting inside of a centerpiece, so maybe a little wider. I'm just going to fill it in. I'm going to have to put more layers on. I'm just going to fill this in. Make sure I have the shape the way I want it. Go down my candle, adding a little thicker paint. Okay, so now that while that's drying, I'm going to come down here and put the bottom of my centerpiece. Okay, I have a flat 3/4 inch and a flat 1/2 inch brush. I'm going to do some poinsettias at the bottom, just simple ones. So I'm going to load my brush up really well. And you can practice the stroke on the plate. Sometimes that helps so you can see how to make it. Okay, so I'm going to touch the end and come in. I want that to be a nice sharp point, so I'm going to touch it, push towards the center, and drag in. Touch it, push towards the center, and drag in. And I'm going to let that one dry a little bit, go to the next one. This one I'll have coming in from here. Move my brush out. Touch, drag in. And I think I'll put one back here to make it look like one coming back there. And here. And then I'll just bring that over it. Oops, not very sharp. Really have to keep that point there too. And I can put that one back in front. Okay, so now while that's drying a little bit, before we put our next coat on, I'm going to come up here. If you want this to have a bit of a shape, where it goes up there, and maybe drips down, we'll put a drip. You could also do something like that for the, and this will set down in there. I'm just going to touch the edge and bring it around. Put another coat on. And my candle's round, so this is where I'm going to start doing a bit of a round stroke. Now I want my candle to be darker at the bottom. Just going to go over that. We're going to come back, so that's all right. The closer it gets to the lighter it'll be when we get highlighting. So this will probably be about as dark as we want it at the bottom, so we'll finish it. Except the drip coming down, it might bring it down that far. Okay. I'm just touching really lightly to blend and smooth it. Come back down here and put these guys back in. Okay, I have some phthalo green, sap green, brown and black. And I have a script liner brush. It's any size is fine as long as it's not too big. And I'm going to add water. Go into my black and brown. And I'm going to add a few spots for some little branches to come out of the centerpiece. I'm going to have one here. And these will come up from in here, so put this one there. You have to use a little water with your paint when you're using script liners. And this one coming right out here. Right here we'll have one coming out. We'll have the front of it there. I've added a little white to my palette, and I'm just going to pick up a little bit on the end of my script liner. I'm just going to touch along those to make highlight. Just wiggle a little along. These are going to have pine needles over them. I've washed my liner brush, and I'm going to go into some dark phthalo green. And I'm going to roll my brush through to pick up the paint. And I'm going to start to add some little pine needles coming off. You'll have to have, again, you have to have a little bit of water in there too. when you're using a liner brush. So I'm just going to go back in, keep going back in, picking some up. Some of these will come out. Some will come out straight. So some will come right in front and go straight up. We're just putting the first coat with just the plain dark phthalo blue. Leave a little bit of the branch showing here and there. Don't have to fill it right in. We're going to put a few highlights. And I'm going to do it like a star all the way out, and that'll look like the end of one when I'm finished. Now we needed to start our poinsettias for the location of these, but we're going to go over our poinsettias after these are finished, because we want them coming out from behind. Add a little water every time your paint doesn't seem to be running as smooth. And as you can see, it dries darker. And we're just going to bring a few right here. Behind that leaf. And we'll bring a few out here. And I'm going to fill in these little spots with a few that would be behind. This will be another kind of end of one. Have some coming from the back. Well, they're not going to really show up too much with this darker layer, but we're just laying it. It'll show up more when we put the highlights. Okay, so now I'm going to take a little bit of white, add to my phthalo green. Add a little water. Add a little bit of water. Roll it through, and I'll start my highlight. And I'll start my highlights on these. I'm not going to cover all them, I'm just going to add a few. Some point out, some point up, so different angles. I'm going to leave that little bit of stick showing there. Needles would come out from the center branch. Try to leave a little bit of branch. We can go put some back in. And they would go straight up, some in front, and some would angle out at different angles. And you want them kind of rounded on the end. Now I have some sap green. I'm going to add some water. Okay, so I've added a little yellow to the sap green, a little bit of water, and now I'm going to add a few highlights. Okay, so I'm thinking about where the candle's going to be. Hitting and highlighting some of those branches. So with a little bit of black and brown, I'm just going to add the ends of these sticks. Coming up that way a little. Maybe a couple coming out here. And a little highlight on it with a tiny bit of white. Okay, so now I'm going to put another coat of paint on my candle, finish my flame, and then I'll move down to my poinsettias. Okay, I'm going to use this round detail brush to fill in my flame. I'm going to use some white and a little bit of yellow. Make some really light yellow paint. I want to keep that point. I'm going to start down here. A little bit of yellow. I'm going to let that dry and I'm going to bring a tiny bit of blue down. I'm going to use that same little detail brush and I'm going to go into some bright red. And I'm going to put the back of my candle in. You can get a little ledge of paint if you roll your brush. A little tip of white and yellow, I'm going to highlight that because the candle will be shining on it. Highlight that a little more. This is the inside of the candle. I've got my little liner brush. You can use a shorter one. It'll be a little easier to handle. I'm just going to go into some black. A bit of white for a little highlight, and I'm going to make a wick. So I'm just going to go up into my fire a little bit and bring it straight down into my candle. Now back to my bigger round brush. And I'm going to put lots of red on it, roll it through. And I want to put a front ledge on the top of my candle now. So I'm just going to Got lots of paint on there. There we go. Now I want to have a drip coming down here. So I have a 1/2 inch flat brush. And I'm going to load it nicely with the red. Keeping it kind of flat, square. And I'm just going to touch the side of my candle and bring a nice thick bit of paint along. And go right across. So I'm not going to go over the places where I've done my little branches, and the candle would get darker as it went down. I'm just going to bring it, kind of blend it in there. And I'm just going to keep blending it. Probably have to do this again. Let it dry a bit while I work on something else. Okay, 3/4 inch flat brush. I'm going to load it up nice. And I'm going to go over these. So I'm going to try to go over the ones that are behind first. Keep my brush sharp and pointed. We'll just start with another brush, and I didn't like it. So I'm just going to add the ones that are in behind first. This one's got some branches over, so I'm not going to interrupt those. Just keep loading it up. The harder you push, the more dark will show through, which we want some to show through. It's nice. And we're just going to build on these now. Okay, so I'm going to go over this one once and then come in with this one. And I have to be careful with here, so. For that one. I'm going to bring this down. There we go. Let's put that in like that. These are going to have some short ones in front of some of this, so. Okay, well, leave that one. I don't want to cover up all the work that I've done, so I'm only going to touch on the ones that aren't covered. I'm just going to have to bring this in, so maybe this will go over that one. I'm going to make sure I have all my tips done nicely. And I want to make it look like there's a few coming in from back here, so I'm just going to scoot a little red in there. My camera was off. I'm sorry about that. I've just went and done smaller ones all the way around with a little bit of, with my bright red and a little white and yellow mixed together to lighten it up. And then I did some of these tips just to bring them in. Okay. Now I'm going to go up to the top of my candle. And with a little white and yellow mixed in with my bright red, I'm going to make a lighter color. And I'm just going to leave a little ridge there, and I'll highlight that after, and I'm just going to lighten up this candle. Just mostly the top part. It'll have more light in the top, closer to the flame, and get darker as it goes down. And I just want to blend that. Now I'm ready to put some drips down the candle. Okay, so for the drips, I've got some white and yellow. I'm going to take some red. I'm going to make myself a nice little light red color with that. And I want a lot on my brush. I'm going to write a nice big gob of it on my brush. And I'm going to decide where I want to drip. I'm going to bring this in from the side so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to hold my brush upside down. Touch where I want my drip to end. And bring it up. And go into the red a little bit there. Put some on it. It's a little too light. Okay. Now I'll go back into the light color and put drips wherever I want them. Lots on there again, a little bit of red in it. Get lots on there. And another drip right here. Bring it pretty much straight up. It's alright if it wiggles a little. Make that drip a little rounder. And I got a nice gob. I'm going to have one coming way down here. This will have to dip down a bit. You can put as few or as many drips as you want there. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to roll my brush in that, get a nice ledge on there. I'm going to put a big ledge of the wax. And a little highlight to show where the edge of it would be. Bit of that highlight on the back. And then I'm just going to put some of the bright red under here. And just pull that down. Leave the dark areas close to the drips for a shadow. Just going to touch the tips of the poinsettia where the light would be hitting. I have yellow and white and red on my brush. And with that really light color and my little brush, I'm going to put a few tiny little leaves coming out. want a nice point. Okay. I'm just going to add a little bit of that original dark crimson underneath here just to cast a shadow, to show some dimension in the drips. I've added a little bit of water so it moves better. Down the sides a little bit. And then maybe just a little bit underneath the drip. And you just pull that down. Oops. Didn't mean to do that. Smooth that out. Pull it down a bit. I have yellow, sap green, and bright red on my palette. I'm going to do the little dots, little buds inside of the poinsettias. I'm going to use the back of my brush. And first I'm going to go into the sap green and get a nice dot of paint on there. Start my center. I'm just going to make some green dots. Some can be a little bigger in the center part. But smaller ones. And about a circle like about that. And they're in pretty much a circle in a poinsettia. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit smaller brush with a little smaller handle, and I'm going to go into And I'm going to go into the yellow the same way. And I just want these dots on top of some of those green. So I don't want them to cover the whole green, so that's why I'm using a little bit smaller dot. Oops. I'm going to leave a few of them for red dots. I want to do a couple little red ones now on those other ones. I'm just going to dab into my red. I think I need a little more yellow in there. I'm just going to touch a little bit of yellow highlight. I'm just going to put a little dot of highlight on these drips. Right here now I'm going to add the whitest part of the flame right in the middle. Add a little bit there. Very tiny little bit of cerulean blue right around where the wick is burning. Bring it down both sides of the wick. And then clean your brush. And with your damp brush, just blend that together with that white. And that's make a flame. Okay, so here's our finished painting. I'm gonna add a few more things. You could stop here if you wanted, but if you'd like, then I'm gonna add another video where I continue on with this painting.